ever happen, though. Don't you agree? I think so.
What's that?
Fair tax. We'll get there anyway. We'll get there. But I don't, as I say, interesting proposition. Doubt it'll work. Because what's fair to you is not fair to me, type thing, isn't it? Anyway, okay. So, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Talking Niagara with me, Peter Giblett, and him, Dave Wheeler.
Hello, everyone. Morning.
So, yep, morning. So, how do you feel about things right now? Toast yesterday, or did you do something else?
Well, I was basically yesterday. I'm trying to sort out many years of stuff that I've had stored in my condo. My condo is like a storage house more than anything. That's because I have stuff from my mother, my father, and my brother all here, plus my own stuff. And I never did get around to just because I live in one part of the condo. I never get around to, I got one room that was just full of stuff. Yeah. So I started to attack that yesterday, and it's going to be a job and a half because there's lots of good stuff there, but I just don't have the room for it all, and I'm just going to have to sort out what I keep and what I don't.
Yeah, and that's the key factor there, isn't it? Because some of that stuff you need to get rid of or sell or whatever, and some you kind of got a place for, and it's tough because you kind of go, well, I remember this,
I got a 6-horse motor. I got a 6-horse motor here. Yeah. I've got tools. I'll never use. I can't seem to. That was my lifeblood, tools, right? And to give them away is like it's or
but you
want to find. I've given thousands of dollars worth of tools away, but
you want to find somebody who's apprenticing in your area, in your expert area, and give them to them. I would have thought would be the best thing.
It's just hard for me to look at that stuff and think I won't use it anymore. Or I keep thinking, well, maybe I'll get a part-time job and I'll take my tools off and realign some motors or something like that. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. That's not going to happen. So you might as well get rid of them. Yeah. All right. Okay. So let's head to our first story anyway. So there's growing concern about foreign agents working in elected office in Canada. And this article basically is, the headline is over exorbitant, about Parliament being racked with allegations of treason. I don't know that we're actually there. And hey, journalists love to do this kind of stuff. They always have loved to do this kind of stuff. Explosion. But the reality was, it's just business as normal. All right. We should be concerned about foreign agents acting, in Canada's parliaments or at whatever level? Of course we should.
Well, the reason why I put this article in is because it's American, rather than have Canadian article, which, we have all kinds of stuff. So I was looking for an outside looking in, and political, of course, is American.
Yeah, it is.
They say Canada's parliament rocked by allegations of treason. Well, we haven't heard treason up here on this side of the border, have we?
No,
we've heard
that word is not used. No. Right, which is why I selectively put the banner up here of growing concern about foreign agents working in elected office in Canada. Yeah, I didn't want to be as dramatic as that. I've not heard the term treason used in Parliament. Right, it's a word that evokes a lot of emotion, of course.
Yeah, and so it quotes here a revelation of heavily redacted findings released this week by an all-party National Security Committee adds intrigue to a separate ongoing inquiry into foreign interference in Canada 2019-2021. Well, we do know that the Chinese, the Russians, the Iranians, particularly the Chinese, are meddling in our votes. We've known that.
And
There's
the
been
Israelis.
What's that?
And the Israelis, of course.
Oh, yeah, the Israelis are meddling now, of course, but they have an Israeli lobby that usually it doesn't get noticed. It's not the same. Like the Chinese are coming and meddling in our elections, and Israelis do the same thing they do in the United States, basically. But I don't know how they do it here. I don't know how the Israeli lobby works here. But it is a concern here as well. I mean, the Israeli lobby is also in UK, and you can see what they did to Jeremy Corbyn. They destroyed his career.
Well, basically, and the stuff has come to light in the US more recently. It's always been there. The APEC has always been there, but they've been kind of don't talk about them. Don't talk about them, kind of thing under the cover, right?
Oh, they support over half the Congress.
Yeah,
and over half the Senate.
Irrespective of what political stripe they are.
Exactly, because they have their objective is to get favorable laws and outlook towards.
And not that they have any, but APEC would support a communist if a communist was supporting them.
Oh man, they would be hard pressed they would support a Nazi if a Nazi. I mean, their whole point is it doesn't matter who the party is or whatever. What matters is that Israel gets favorable treatment. Yeah. And you're not supposed to talk about them doing that. But so of course we have that here, but here in this particular article, being an American article, sees it a little bit different. And they put the word treason on there, and they do point out quite often or in this article that we already have this problem with foreign interference. Now, take that article.
And we've heard it before that Poilievre is saying that Canadians have the right to know who and what the information is and who they are, you know. Some of these have been identified.
Well, Elizabeth May has come up with a comment. Poilievre is demanding, as you said, Poilievre is demanding the names and trying to get to the bottom of it, but he will not go into the security clearance to look at the unredacted forms, because if he does, then he cannot say anything about what he reads, because it's all security clearance. It's like you cannot. That's private. So that's why he doesn't go get that security clearance. It leaves him a lot of room to be able to demand those things. On the other hand, the government has said you can't reveal those names because they're protected by law at this particular time. And finally, Elizabeth May, who has taken the security clearance and looked at the unredacted report, says we really don't have much to worry about. There is no parliamentarian in there working against Canada or didn't know better that they did. So she makes it look like it's a very minor thing. There may be anomalies here and there, but the people who are involved in them were either dumb or didn't know what they were doing, or it wasn't that bad at all, those kind of things. So there you have a counter argument where a leader of a different party, in this particular case, the Green Party, has read it and says, you know what, this is not a big deal.
And in fact, actually, she as a member of an opposition party, she always has an axe to grind, but she's she's not very influential in terms of her ability to change parliament, change anything. So I would have a tendency to believe what Elizabeth May is saying.
I certainly would too, because she's not going to make huge points by exaggerating or or deflecting the results of any kind of investigation. She's got nothing to gain or lose.
Yes.
So she just walks out and says, well, this isn't a whole lot of, this really isn't much to worry about at all. I mean, there's screw ups here, she says, and it's usually, it sounds as if it's bad judgment or ignorance or basically that. You're not talking about the CCP, the communist Chinese Communist Party coming in here and setting up their version of CIA offices. But they do have what's called the police stations, which of course was a problem, which was similar to that. So there are those things that are problematic from further investigations on foreign interference prior to that. They're just, what they're trying to do is determine our sort of our MPs trying to make money or influence through the cooperation with other governments. Basically what APEC does, but it's legal there. But imagine if China come along and started to say, okay, it doesn't matter what party you're from, but if you are China friendly, and if you take a China's good stance on everything that comes up related to China, we're going to give you some money for your campaign. And anyone who says that China has to be worried about, we'll give money to whoever is against them. That's what AIPAC's doing in the States. But it hasn't come to that point with Chinese or the Russians or Iranians up here, So that's what Elizabeth May has said. So we'll see though. Is she a good enough judge of the situation to understand that? Here's Karen Fraser. Good morning, Karen.
And Mike, of course.
And Mike and Metaphysical Mike. And so basically we're talking about Elizabeth May seems to be a fairly reasonable person most of the time. And when she reads the unredacted form, it says we really don't have a whole lot to worry about. There isn't any big master spy in Parliament. There isn't anybody nefarious enough to be making some sort of inroads with foreign.
And to my knowledge, nobody has used the word treason.
Nobody up here. That's why I used this American article, Politico. Quite often, though, and the reason why I look for articles outside of our country that comment about our country is quite often you'll get a different perspective. And quite often you'll get something you missed.
Well, I think the word
because you're involved in your own family kind of thing up here, and somebody from the outside looking in can point stuff out.
Yeah, because they don't have a particular. They're not supporting a particular party, and Politico is has actually been. I think that as a commentary journal, I think they're fine. They actually are quite hard punching both left and right in America, from what I've seen.
It says here of course, this is the American news, of course, saying Political saying the new report from the National Security and Intelligence Committee of the Parliamentarians is the first to suggest that lawmakers in Canada Parliament have helped foreign actors meddle in the political campaigns and leadership races. Well, that's really has already been out there. We know that is happening, but they're trying to suggest that certain MPs are even more in it.
Now, the question here that does occur to me. So, Mr. Polyev wins the next election. Is one of the first things he's going to do, because he will then at that point be read into scope of the, it will be read in terms of the national security issues. Will he then read those names out in Parliament?
No, he won't, because it's illegal. It's illegal. It's illegal to do it.
Exactly.
And that's very clearly.
Exactly that. Thank you, Dave. Right. So the point being is, if he becomes prime minister, or when he becomes prime minister, he will do exactly the same as Trudeau.
Yeah, he is obligated by his office to maintain the law, and the law and order are foundational to democracy, and you have to have fair laws. Like, you can't start exposing these people's names before you have proof that they did things. Well, first of all, proof of intent, and then proof that they actually did what did meddle with a foreign government. So this is pretty interesting. And so now we have this American point of view, outside looking in, and I'm glad I read this article, because I read Politico once in a while. I read them, and the way they wrote this article tells me more about Politico than I know. Like, I could see their different slant on it, how they like to make it look more interesting than it really is. Let's put it that way, kindly. So they have basically a whole lot of the facts here in this article, but they have exacerbated the facts. Basically, they make it sound like there's treason going on, confusion. It says here, the committee with top security clearance said it's based its findings on more than 4,000 documents and 1,000 pieces of evidence. They report that China remains the largest foreign interference threat to Canada, with India in second place. Well, we do know that already, don't we? And so by them saying that, we are now the Canadian government hasn't really said that much or made that much of a point of that, because they know that immediately the Canadian people will start looking at the Chinese and Indian members of parliament and wondering if they're the ones that are treasonous, or they're the ones that are working with a foreign government. If China and India are the top two meddlers, then it would be obvious that those of Chinese or Indian background would be those most suspected.
But you can't just wave a wide broom and brush them all out of office, so to speak.
Yeah, and of course it brings up too, this being an American article, it does a kind of good summation of a bunch of different things that's come into our media. We have so many media outlets in Canada all talking about the same thing. So sometimes it's good to read an article from a different country looking in, because they sum things up. They don't have to take in so many different. They can sum up everything they said. And Freeland would not commit to releasing names nor agree to the sunlight. And that's what Poilievre wants, the sunlight. Cleanse the thing with sunlight. Open it up, everyone see it. So that's what Poilievre.
And again, I'll take that question again and put it in. So if Poilievre were prime minister right now, would he be opening it up to everyone?
No, he wouldn't, because it's illegal. And that's exactly the same thing. So he's asking.
And my point there is, it's easy for him as leader of the opposition to make that statement. It's a lot harder for him, if he were in power right now, to be doing that.
Well, remember too, it's the Conservative MP Michael Chong appeared before the Congressional Executive Commission on China to testify about being targeted by Beijing of his defense of Uyghurs issue. So the whole thing's dripping with hypocrisy. Basically, Poilievre he sees the political points he can make by not being part of the process and demanding exposure of those who are so-called colluding with foreign powers. Now, he must have a very good bet that they're mostly liberals and NDP. Now, and then can you really, the NDP, the Greens, and the Liberals are all fear the Conservatives more than anything. Do you think Elizabeth May would have said anything that would have benefited Poilievre So what did she mute what she thought just to
She
play
has no
politics
reason
like
to.
everyone else is playing politics?
No, she has no reason to.
Yeah, I don't think so either. But there is that possibility,
Yeah, yeah. And it's not like she's vying for power today. She isn't, right? She has no reason to at the end of the day.
No, she'd be lucky to get one seat next go round.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the influence of the Greens is waning here within Canada.
Well, that's because they're nutcases.
Yeah, because we've got problems with them. Elizabeth May seems to be about the only reasoned logical Green MP there is out there. Sorry, Karen, but it's just the way it is right now. And I know you'll probably say I'm wrong, and that's fair. You got your viewpoint. We've got a right to ours, right?
They won't be able to recover from Anime Paul for some time.
Yeah.
And the idea, and then they have their election process where they hold hands and all this stuff. It's like, I think it's a little bit rich. You just got to get down to politics, get down to ordinary everyday politics, see how their policies can improve the conditions of Canadians on the ground. I don't know what sort of economic policies or anything else. Nobody does know. So the Greens are really going to have to do a lot of work. Anime Paul really screwed it up bad. That's why Elizabeth May had to come back from retirement basically to fix things up.
Yeah, exactly. And she's I'd say that she's a good stateswoman. She's done it all, but that isn't going to save the Green Party right now.
But I would say it was safe to say that what her interpretation, like she was able to read the unredacted things, and of course she can't discuss it at length, but she gave us her impression that it's not a big deal.
Yeah. All right. Moving on. And here's my so what one. Biden's son Hunter is convicted of federal gun trial. Well, so what? It has it should have zero impact upon Biden because it's not Biden, it's his son. But of course, Trump will play it up as being a family concern, right? Not that not that Donald Trump is any different because he's been convicted as well.
Yeah, to me. The fact that Hunter Biden got a gun when he was stoned out of his head is no surprise to me at all. If you read anything about this guy from his university days on, or even before that, he's been a substance abuse guy from day one. Basically, he is a guy that abuses his power and position. He's a guy that leans on his father's influence over and over again. He's got off of we don't know how many countless drinking while driving charges, all these kind of things. So he's being the prodigal son, basically the guy that just keeps disappointing, but gets the love of the father in the end. Anyway, my problem with Joe Biden and his son was Joe Biden enabled his son when they went to Ukraine. That Burisma thing, yes, Hunter Biden was qualified technically to be in Burisma because he was a lawyer. He had law degrees. But his father knew that he had addiction problems and behavior problems and was an irresponsible fellow. And he brought him into a very, very important situation where young Biden, Hunter was able to influence peddle, get a lot of money from people just by using his father's name. Now, I don't implicate his father in this at all because anyone who has known anyone who has a drug or alcohol problem, you'll never know what they're up to. You'll never know if they're stealing, whatever. So the young Biden here is taking full advantage of his position as his father's son and got money and payoffs and done a lot of.
This is actually one of the problems about being part of that elite, isn't it? The children get a lot more money and a lot more power than they really should.
Well, yeah, he's lived his life with a silver spoon in his mouth, because his dad can get him off of everything. I mean, he was one day in, I think he joined the military, and he was in one day before he's thrown out, because when they did a blood test of him, he was full of cocaine or some other thing. So this guy, look, he's an addict, and he acts like an addict, and he's irresponsible, spoiled brat. Joe Biden loves him. Of course, it's his son. Joe Biden is an enabler. That's the problem I have with Joe Biden, is his inability to be able to make that call when he needed to, when he was vice president and involved with Ukraine. He took his son along, and his son just had one big party, and a whole lot of that was the expense of the American taxpayer. That's what I think the concentration should be, not on Hunter Biden's character, or whether he got convicted or not. The real issue here is, why did Joe did not have the judgment to know that this was going to happen when he took his son to Ukraine, and the meddling in China, and the kind of payoffs he got in China and Ukraine and anywhere else that he went.
Yeah.
Those are the things. And he must have known, reports must have been coming back to Joe, that his son was out of control. But he didn't want to believe it, because he's a parent. And parents like that enable their sons, and they don't look at them. Even the most wise of men, Marcus Aurelius, put his son in control, who is Commodus. And Commodus was just like Hunter Biden, basically. And yet his father was an enabler. So you have family and emotions. So that was a super bad judgment by Biden. And I think I have no care about what Hunter Biden does at all. But my more pressing issue is the poor judgment that Joe Biden used with his son.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something we can be, that is something we certainly can be talking about. But, the fact that Hunter Biden is likely to get somewhere, could get up to 25 years in prison, is something.
Yeah. And it's not just his whoring and his drug addict stuff that he was doing steady, right? He was influencing and being part of very, very important international relations.
Yeah.
And he was using American taxpayers' influence and all that other stuff to advance his own coke nose and prostitutes and whatever else you like. That, I think, is the biggest problem here, because there was this guy that his father let loose that could have done untold damage. And his father looked the other way with enabling eyes. So that, I think, is the biggest problem there. Otherwise, who cares about about Hunter? I hope he does get his act together. But once an addict, always an addict, I think.
Yeah. Okay, moving on. Our government is concerned about, or Justin Trudeau specifically is concerned about Islamic misinformation campaign that is being run by the Israelis that are targeting Canadians right now.
Yeah, this is happening in the States too, but it doesn't get a whole lot of airplay. You do get a lot of the anti-Semitism stuff, which is appalling. Some of the demonstrators are right out to it, like they're terrible. Basically, stuff that they're saying. But what you're not getting is the other part of it. And Israel is running a fake campaign in Canada, and they're doing the same thing in the States.
And the US, yeah.
So
They've hired
they're
a private firm to conduct an operation to sway public opinion in Canada and the US.
So we just talked about foreign influences in our parliament, but here's foreign influence. The Israelis come in, make up a bunch of fake things. They are anti-Palestinian and pro-Israel, and there are 200 or some or fake sites all over the place, directing their media, their social media at Canadians at all levels, trying to sway the opinion of Canadians. And if you see some of the stuff on YouTube, the Israeli slanted stuff, you'll find that it's nowhere any more factual than the hard Palestinian stuff. The stuff in the middle is good. You have Israelis and Palestinians talking about justice and all that other stuff. That stuff's good. But there is this hard you're with us or against this Israel or Palestine thing. Now, what the Israeli government has tried to do is try to infiltrate our social media and try to convince Canadians that Israel's really the good guy here.
But again, Global Affairs spokesman James Emmanuel Wanke said the department's rapid response mechanism, a body that monitors for foreign state-sponsored misinformation, is investigating these allegations, but has not been able to decisively attribute whether the campaign is run by a state actor. So as far as they know, it just is private individuals.
It could be, but that separation between state and private is a little bit, I mean, a suspect, because AIPAC, like we just talked about AIPAC and the Israeli lobby, they are not officially tied to Israel at all. It is a American political influencer, but it's all pro-Israel, but it's private. So the state of Israel could say, oh, we had nothing to do with this, but it can feed it money and it can feed it influence and all that. Obviously the government of Israel is behind this in some way or another. They're going to make sure that they have guarded themselves well enough. So if anybody looks at it close enough, it's not going to be easy for them to find direct ties to the government. And if they do, they'll probably find ties to individuals and not the government. So officially, the government can say, oh, we had nothing to do with it officially, but Smotrich or Netanyahu or whoever else had been involved independently. The Jewish settler movement of the West Bank are the ones, not the government or something else. But it's hard Islamophobic information, and that's the problem.
The other thing I note about this is the Star invited the Israeli embassy in Ottawa to comment upon these allegations, and the Israeli embassy have not done so. And let's be honest, when is an embassy ever going to comment upon such allegations?
No, they know that most of the time they know, as long as they wait long enough, that nobody's going to bother them again. So they just wait for it to go away. But the federal government says it's raised concerns directly with Israel over the allegations. Now, I heard a question to Christian Freeland saying the same thing. Christian Freeland was asked, well, what about Israelis meddling in with this Islamophobic misinformation campaign that's coming out of Israel? And she said that she just gave a general, we don't want anyone from anywhere meddling in our affairs, but she wouldn't address it specifically about the Israeli thing. She wouldn't. It was a general overall, we don't like anybody meddling in our stuff, right?
Well, and the thing is, let's face it, if we were really at that point, what would be happening is Canada has the ability to basically say we believe that Israel is meddling in our internal affairs. Get out. They have that option, right?
And this is what the government disclosed to the Star, right?
Yeah.
And the government disclosed to the Star when asked about recent report of prominent Israeli newspaper, which alleged a branch. This is an Israeli newspaper, basically, which alleged a branch of Israeli state hired a private firm, like you said, that conducted an operation to sway public opinion in Canada and the United States over its conduct during the ongoing Gaza war. So there is this suspicion that the Israeli newspapers thinks it's part of a branch of the Israeli state. I don't have any doubts that the Israeli government is part of it, or at least clandestinely looks the other way, or even funds it, or even sort of encourages it. So this is the situation we have going here. Unfortunately, we have this thing called social media, and it's easy to mess with.
Well, I mean, you can comment upon something that's going on in pick any state you want in the world. Let's say Hong Kong. You could have heard a rumor about something going on in Hong Kong and actually make up a story about it, and you could create your own conspiracy theory if you wanted.
It was Haaretz in June 5th that's the famous, probably the most famous Israeli newspaper, Haaretz, citing sources and information. It was able to obtain reported that the Israeli Diaspora Affairs Ministry, that's who they said, the Israel's Diaspora Affairs Ministry, hired a private political campaign firm called Stoic, capital S, capital T, capital O, capital I, capital C, to conduct large-scale influence campaign after the war in Gaza started. Well, we can see that something's happening there because of the exaggerated reports that have come out of Israel. Right from October 7th on, 40 beheaded babies. Remember, there was that discussion, was it 40 or 50 beheaded babies? And people wagging their finger at, how can you allow 40 babies to get killed? What are you going to do? There was no baby beheaded at all. There was no systematic rape. There was individual rape, but no systematic rape, which they claimed that it was too. So for some reason, a horrific event like October 7th wasn't horrific enough for the Israeli establishment. They had to make it even worse. If they could have said they couldn't lie about the numbers because that was evident. You count the bodies, but this other stuff they could allow happen before, and they wouldn't say anything about it. So the story went out that 40 or 50 babies were beheaded, and then it wasn't until a journalist asked the Israeli government officials, actually, how many did you find? And they said, well, there was none. But in the meantime, they let the story run without stopping it.
Yeah.
And of course, Americans, the media around the world picked it up. Oh my God! Nobody fact checked. I think whoever does this knows pretty well what they're doing.
Oh yeah, and the whole point about the baby thing was to paint the paint the Palestinians in the worst light.
Well, Hamas is a pretty bad organization, but they basically just came to take captives. And they ran into, well, anyway, we won't go into that, but the thing here is just be there's going to be an appetite for anti-Islamic stuff. There's going to be an appetite for pro-Israeli stuff. There's going to be an appetite for anti-Semitic stuff, but seriously, in and among the people I run, I've never really heard much anti-Semitic stuff ever. Maybe a little here and there, maybe some years ago, lately, last 20, 30 years, not much. But what I have heard is a lot of anti-Islamic, Islamophobic stuff. That was on the rise. But in any case, whatever it is bad. But this kind of thing makes this meddling much, much worse. It's adding fuel to the fire.
Well, and now we're talking about two states meddling in Canadian politics: China and Israel.
China, India, and Israel. Yeah,
India as well.
We've had lesser complaints about the Iranians and the Russians as well, but those are the two big players in Canada.
Yeah.
So everybody, you know what? So there you go. Like the Canadian reporters didn't do that much. Like they didn't make that association between the previous investigations, Chinese meddling and Indian meddling, because they're smart. Because as soon as you start saying something like that, everybody's going to look into Parliament and look which ones are Indian and which ones are Chinese. Aha, those are the traitors.
Yeah, but again, you can't just brush every Indian or Chinese MP or MPP that we have, or MLAs in other in other provinces. You can't just brush them all with the same tarred brush and brush them.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can, because that's what people do. You say you can't do that, but that's what's being done. So if you reveal it's Chinese and Indians mostly meddling in Canadian politics, and you have Chinese and Indian politicians sitting in Parliament, what conclusion would you draw?
Yeah, I wouldn't draw such a conclusion, but I understand why some people will.
Yes, exactly. And I think Canadians, the Canadian government has wisely stayed away from that, but taking an outside look into our government will kind of light that fuse, I'm afraid.
All right, moving on. Unless you have anything else.
No, I just think it's appalling that Israel is messing around. Do we mess around with anybody? Does the Canadian government feed anybody to go and sort of do pro-Canadian? Do we have pro-Canadian lobbyists? We probably do have them, but do we have pro-Canadian organizations that go around and try to influence elections?
Yeah. No, we don't.
Wondering.
I don't think so. Okay, so moving on. Port Coburn Paralympian is headed to Paris. Emma Van Dyke started swimming basically she says swimming changed her life. She finds peace in the pool, and she started swimming through therapy because when she was little, the doctors told her and her family she wasn't going to ever be able to walk or talk in her life. So she started swimming, and now she's in the Olympics. Well, good for her.
Yeah. She's in the S14 category, which is an intellectual impairment. And if you look that up, it will tell you what she has to overcome. With her the reason why she's a para-athlete is intellectual impairment and sort of sorting out instructions and all kinds of different things. She has to work harder than the rest of us. So that's her thing. And she beat her own record apparently in the pool. So there we have it. We have an astonishing athlete right here from Port Colborne. And we're going to see what she does coming up. And I'm kind of looking forward to that.
Well, the Olympics start in, I believe, late August or early September. And the Paralympics start afterwards. Yeah.
And I'm kind of excited about that because I'm wondering, she's has a very good chance of bringing home a medal, you know, and to have a Olympic medalist right here from the Niagara region would be something special, don't you think?
Oh yeah, yeah.
I think we had. I think maybe we have had Olympians in the area. Gord Singleton, I think, is the last one I can remember. There are probably others I just haven't really been paying attention too much.
Well,
there was, of
obviously
course,
we had Mr. Strange.
yeah, but I don't think he came home with a medal. But he was an Olympian.
No, he was an Olympian. He didn't come home with a medal, I don't think.
But I think this young lady is going to come home with one. A very, very good chance of it.
Yeah.
Her numbers are getting better all the time. She beat her own record. So
yeah.
So Miss Van Dyck, I hope you do what looks like you can do. Emma Van Dyck. I don't know if it's Van Dyck or Van Dyke.
It's Van Dyke. It's
Van
Dyke. Van Dyke is the way it's a Dutch name, and it's Van Dyke. I've come across it a few times.
Yeah, she's usually there's an E at the end if it's Van Dyke. That's why I was confused.
No, I've seen it without an E, and it's spelled pronounced that way.
Same way. It's pronounced the same way. Okay.
Yeah.
And here's her quoted. It's always been my dream. So knowing I can call myself a Paralympian, it means a lot. And knowing I can compete in the highest level is just amazing overall. So she's happy. I came home from a practice and I was in the gym. She broke her foot. So that's a story about her breaking her foot, but she went to the surgeon and said, I'm on the national team and I want to make it to Paris. So what's the best way I can still train after she broke her foot? So I wasn't putting in a full cast. So what they did was they designed it, had a special cast for her so that she could still work out and kick in the pool. I mean, it's amazing. She's part of the Niagara Aquatics team coached by Brock Badger's varsity head coach, Dave Ling. And he says Emma trains hard and can be very tough on herself. Ling recently said Brock News. Her performance at the Olympic trials was the best she's been since breaking her foot last spring and is right on time to punch her ticket to Paris. Yahoo! Okay, Emma. Wave the Olympic flag for Emma. Geez, I hope she comes home with a medal, don't you? Definitely.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to have one in the region, eh?
Yeah. Well, yeah, and okay, so let's basically move on. Gonna do something. Okay. Niagara Falls is council is to review the casino policing policy. They're questioning basically what they're getting for their 4.2 million right now.
Yeah, this is pretty. And again, does it surprise you that the force behind this is Lori Lococo? Does that surprise you?
No.
Right. And it's of course, right away, like talk about somebody who takes their job seriously. Holy smokes. For the first time in 9 years, Niagara Falls officials want to take a deeper look into Niagara Regional Council's police casino patrol unit. That comes right from the article. During its recent meeting, City Council approved Councillor Lori Lococo's motion calling for a review of the casino police agreement. The motion also asked council to be provided with statistics of additional policing costs. Well, yeah. So there is a confusion. What do the casino we're paying out of our $20 million that we get from the casino? A hunk of it, like about $4 million of it, goes to supporting the casino police unit that pretty much does or in and around the casino, which is a place where they have a lot of calls. The problem came here, I think, is when there was a call in on Summer Street, and the policeman says, well, we can come up to this yellow line, but not any further. Our jurisdiction's over here, which sounds absolutely ridiculous. So you've got the jurisdiction of the police unit for the casino can't cross the road when there's
there's something wrong there. Definitely there's something wrong there. You know, Now, Mayor Diodati has basically cautioned that service is 100% at the discretion of the police chief, right? But I think there are some concerns. Councillor Baldinelli also backed Lococo's motion, calling it timely because when city officials recently met with residents concerned about homeless shelter, there was some confusion around which police unit covered that area.
Yeah.
And
so
it's like,
what's the idea here? Make sure that the homeless shelter is outside the jurisdiction of the casino police. I don't know. I think if the casino police car is close enough to the problem, they should take it. I mean, this idea we can only do our job inside this little zone, but not outside of it. It bothers me.
They're just a unit.
Really.
They're just a unit of the Niagara Regional Police, and essentially, if you were a police officer and you were on active duty, but you were well, it might be different if you're doing like a detective work and you were, let's say, spying on a potential suspect, you'd probably be immune from that. But in normal events, if a policeman was in the neighborhood of an active crime, they'd probably be asked to investigate.
Yeah, so but I think probably things like homeless shelter complaints and vagrancy and stuff like that, I don't know, police don't really like to mess with that too much. It's a big pain in the neck for them. So I don't know if that had anything to do with it. But so she said, I'll just read right from the article. She said the unit was brought up in recent discussions surrounding a homeless shelter in Summer Street. I spoke with a lot of residents, and some said they would speak to police, and then one police officer said to them, "Do you see that yellow line in the middle of the road?" They said yes, and the police officer says, "Well, our district only goes to that line, the middle of the road, not the other side of the road where the shelter is." So I was really confused by that. Wouldn't anybody be?
Yeah.
As Lori said, I didn't really know what that meant. And then after I investigated a little bit, it meant the casino unit was responsible for patrolling one side of the street, and then the other was another district. But I never heard of that before. Either did I, actually. And I know we have our core unit, then we're supposed to have the casino unit, and then we have a regular unit. So I'm just a little bit more clarification. Yes, I really don't like the idea that there's a policeman there and you say, "Look over there, there's a problem. Oh, can't cross the street. That we have to call someone else." Well, that'll be 10, 15 minutes. Oh, well, the 6 shootings going on over there. I'm just going to have to drive this car a little bit farther away because I don't want a bullet hole in here.
Yeah, and that's what's wrong with this. That's what's wrong with this whole picture. Cross the goddamn street. Arrest the person.
Yeah, I could see a core group of people more regularly, sitting in that core district in and around the casino. It's important for our tourism. It's important for the security in that. But when push comes to shove and there's a criminal action going on or police are needed and they won't cross the yellow line, that sounds, I don't know. I would like clarification on that too. Did the police actually say that? Would the police actually cross the road? I'm pretty sure they wouldn't want to cross the road for homeless mayhem and addicted people or homeless people acting up. That would be a big pain in the ass. They would definitely like somebody else to come and take care of that one for them. But that really gives the impression that they would not attend to a real crime going on there because of the yellow line. I doubt that really is what that meant, but yeah, clarification is definitely required. And no surprise to me that Lori's behind this again.
But okay, so let's go. And do we need a police force that is specifically focused, or do we need a unit within our police force that is specifically focused upon the possibility that crime exists in the casino? Absolutely, yes, because the casino would have, like, of course, that any of these kind of places would have the normal robberies and thefts and pickpocketing and those sort of things going on, because you would, and that's, let's face it, that's going to be down on the parkway as well. That's going to be down where where tourists are going all the time.
That's the Niagara police, the Niagara Parks police.
That then becomes part of the jurisdiction of that police force down there. But the fact that we have multiple police forces in this city is problematic, especially especially if you need to get somebody to support in crossing over. And the fact that this is just a unit of the Niagara Regional Police, no, get on with it, arrest that person and hand them over to the suitable, the suitable other person. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah.
What would happen is, I was speaking with one of the Niagara Parks police, and so I said, I said to him one time, I obviously you drive your vehicles off of the parks, and if you you saw an infraction, like an infraction on like a ticketable offence, what would you do? I said, I've got the power to stop people, but I have to hand them over. I have to then subsequently call the Niagara Regional Police and and basically write the report up and hand it over to the Niagara Regional Police. The person who's going to appear in court would be the Niagara Regional Police officer, and not the Parks Police.
Well, when I got my car accident, it was right on River Road, and one of the things that was delaying everything was the fact that we had to get a Niagara Parks Police to do the report and everything. If it was just a regular a regional cop, we would have been there in a couple of minutes. But I wasn't going to die. I was just bleeding a lot and hurt, and so they had to wait for the Niagara Parks Police to come and make the report and all that.
As soon as you turn left or right off of Stanley Avenue onto the 420, you're now part of the OPP remit and not Niagara Regional Police, even if you're committing a crime there.
Yeah.
So
so that's the way that works. But this casino thing and how it works and how much we're paying for it and everything like that, I don't think there's a whole lot of people that are going to argue the fact that we need a specific casino unit. There's a lot of money that goes back and forth there.
Yeah,
there's
of course.
And they're going to be drifters going in and out of there.
Yeah, and they're going to be more focused.
There is already. It says so in the article that there are much more calls in that zone than anywhere else.
Well, also the other thing about that is the police in the casino will be looking out for frauds and other money laundering kind of schemes as well, won't they?
I think what they're talking about here is perhaps that has to do with it, but I think mostly what they're talking about is feet on the ground or rubber on the tire type of coverage. And it does say, I think it says somewhere in the article how much more they're needed in the casino area, because it is a high crime area or a high incident area that requires police. And it says somewhere here in the article, I'm trying to find it. But it goes on, and it's a very good article if anyone wants to read this article, because it does give you a good idea, because it gives you the history of what's happened going from the beginning to the end. And
one of the things to note,
Jason Burgess, the chief administrative officer, has renegotiated the agreement whereby the unit now receives 18% of the money from the municipality receives from the LG. That's quite a hunk.
Yeah. Well, the other issue about here is that I saw it.
Here you go. Here it says, in an interview nearly a decade ago, then NRP Chief Jeff McGuire said the unit responded to more than 5,500 calls for service in 2014, which is more calls than the entire city of Port Colborne that year. And we can assume that it's the same now, 10 years later. Similar.
Oh, undoubtedly it is. And with prospects of things like money laundering in the casino, of course, there's serious crimes going on there, right? But the one thing I did note about this is that Niagara Regional Police refused to talk to the Niagara Falls Review.
They didn't refuse. They just didn't. They didn't respond. So I think what they're going to do is kind of they're going to need time to prepare for that, and it may be they may be not at liberty to say anything about it at this particular time. I don't know.
It may be.
But everybody knows the same thing, which don't say anything and just wait for it to go away, and you'll get away with it, you know.
Yeah.
Once the focuses are moving around, the focus comes off of you, it'll eventually do that. Then you're okay.
Basically, the Niagara Regional Police, that unit of the Niagara Regional Police, is basically a budget of 4.2 million, which is 18% of the OLG, the revenue the city gets from the OLG.
Yeah, so we get a lot of money, don't we?
Yeah. Right. No, I'm not. I don't know. I'd like to hear more about this. I am concerned that we, of course, something like casino always attracts certain types of crimes, and that's a specific knowledge type crime. Things like money laundering, the average cop wouldn't necessarily know about, but so I'd understand that this is a specific and specialist unit, but also they have duties outside of the casino, and I never liked that I won't cross the line mentality. And a lot of that is driven by the fact that, hey, I've got to wait 15 minutes to hand this person over to somebody else, and I don't need that. I don't need that headache.
Yeah. So we get over $23 million for the casino, from the casino, and 18% of it is slated for this police unit. This police unit, and I like the way that it's put here. The accusations are not really flying out there. It is put into the realm as clarification, right? And that's what they're looking for. Clarification. What does that mean? Will your officers come to a yellow line and say, I'm not going to cross that yellow line? If I was a police officer and there was homeless people and addicts making a mayhem over there, I definitely want another unit to take care of it. Definitely.
Well, yeah, because in fact, and probably the other unit that's called is going to say, "You're a bastard. You gave me this heap of shit."
It's on that side of the yellow line, but it's yours. However, if there was gunplay or serious crime going on, I doubt very much if the police would say, "Oh, well, that's that yellow line."
Yeah.
The day-to-day nuisance calls, I can see them. And do you really want your squad car held up for could be hours with a domestic or something else that's not very serious, but it does require police? Do you want one of them, your squad cars, covered up, and when a serious crime may happen in your own unit?
Yeah.
So do you want
that?
Yeah. So
I get that, but
I don't see how they can organize it any different, really.
Again, therefore, if there was a gun-toting criminal on the other side of the line, they might be concerned about them, but they would only take action if they came to their side of the line.
Well, that won't happen, really. It won't, because no police officer is going to do that. I can understand. Look, I know of a story. This is a true story about cops in New York, and if they find a body of a drifter or something like that on their side of a line of a road, and that road is the division between them and another district, they'll drag that body to the other side so they don't have to deal with it.
Yeah.
Right.
All right.
Because it takes too much time and it's a nuisance kind of thing. Okay. Yeah. Hi, Chris. How you doing?
Yep. Okay. And we're just pretty much he's listening later, so he's probably early in the show. All right. So hi, Chris. Welcome. And we're just about to leave.
Yeah, that's about it for us today.
Yeah.
And we have all kinds of things. If you see anything, United Citizens for Canada, that is that Israeli propaganda, Islamophobic propaganda. They usually go under the shelter of a made up organization called the United Citizens for Canada. So if you see something like that, be very suspicious of it.
Yeah. All right. Okay, thanks for warning everybody. All right. Well, Dave?
Without further ado, I bid you adieu. There is a possibility of peace on the horizon. Let's see if it happens.